Hey Tom, this is Danny, and I don't know if you know, but I'm doing these audio feedback reviews on video now. And my process is basically to download the waveform, take it into Wavelab Pro 9, do some analysis, have a listen to it, and feedback literally whilst I'm listening. I was working with the text kind of responses before, and I felt that they didn't really capture the kind of energy of the direct feedback. So hopefully you're going to be vibing on this. Everybody who's had it so far seems to be getting really into it. And it reminds me of the stuff that I basically brought in at Point Blank, the DVR process, because originally the reviews at Point Blank were done by text. And then, I introduced the concept of doing the video reviews. It became a huge success. And, that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to bring it into this platform too. Here's the track on the player. And there are some obligatory comments that I need to fill out. All right, so you can see here, mandatory, first impressions, strongest point, weakest point, suggested strategy. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do those as I go. Okay, I'm going to get the first impressions one ready. And it's a text box. Just going to push Control and switch to my other window here where I've got your audio file loaded into Wavelab. So I'm going to play it from the beginning. At the moment I've got headphones. I will switch to speakers at some point. The other thing that I'm going to introduce is a thing called the master rig. This is where I can get in there and make a few tweaks. Of course, it's the stereo file and it looks like it's already been mastered, so it's basically not optimal. The best thing to do is to go back into your original project and make some changes, but this is a way for me to discover stuff and make recommendations to you. The other things that we've got on the go, we've got the Spectroscope here, which is going to give us a frequency guide. It's going to tell us what's happening across the frequencies we can hear from 20 hertz, 20 kilohertz. And then also a level meter here, so we can judge the level of the track and see how that's actually sounding and see how that is. Okay, so let's have a listen from the top. Back to the beginning, let's listen. Now, my very first impression of this is that the vocal does make for quite a good intro, right? But whenever I listen to tracks like this, which is quite clearly designed for club, I always feel that actually a DJ may not want to have that at the very beginning. And in some respects, that intro, that vocal intro, which kind of signifies your tune, might be better off maybe say 16 or 32 bars later, so that at least the DJ's got some clean beats to mix in with. And you're going to find mixed opinions about this, but that's just my feeling at the moment. It feels like you don't need to have that at the very, very beginning. All right. The other thing that I'm hearing is a very, very low frequency kick drum. It feels incredibly subby on these headphones. Going to come back again. Do you know what? That's actually reflected on the Spectroscope here. It does seem as if in the area between 20 to 44 hertz, there is what I would class as an abnormal amount of low sub-frequencies. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a look. I'm going to double click and come up to Analyze. I'm going to take a look at the 3D frequency analysis and just scrolling along here. Well, I mean, yeah, down at the 20, there is something. It's I kind of expected a bit more, but then again, the headphones that I've got are quite basic. I'm going to have to cross-reference with the speakers soon. We might want to just low cut that, all right? So just to basically shave off a little bit of the extra low frequency energy and just kind of rebalance the kind of the headroom that we get on the track. But once again, we are slammed up to 0 here. That's how it looks. Just looking over here, just as a reference point, the level meter is showing a peak value for the left and right identically at minus 0.33 dB. Okay, your RMS here at -7 is pretty loud already. Okay, we would go for a recommendation probably of about -10 for the RMS, so that's the average level. And then up, minus 0.3 is very common. But these days, I would say if you're going to convert to MP3, you may not want to go that loud. Okay, you might want to take it a little bit lower. So minus 0.5 or even -1, okay? But of course you wouldn't do that for your kind of, if it was going for mastering as a kind of CD master. It's more about these compressed formats, okay? So CD is uncompressed, but really we don't really live in the world of CDs so much anymore, do we? So anyway, that's the peak level there. So gut feeling at the moment, I think maybe you've kind of over compressed this or over limited it. So that's the gut feeling. I like how you've got these kind of textures on every second beat. You've got a hit. It's almost like a filtered rim shot or clap or something. There's some nice little textures here forming the intro, not too much happening, just enough to kind of tease the fact that there's something new coming up. Also, like in the background, you've got almost like a kind of ticking clock kind of thing. It's almost like there's some kind of rhythm there that's been filtered. Okay, now we've got a nice bright clap as a contrast to that sort of filtered knocking sound we had before. So I really like the way this is building up. You know, my initial recommendation would be a case of take away that vocal on the very, very beginning, let that come later. All of this is a really nice gradual introduction. Okay, I've got mixed feelings about this first breakdown. One of the things about having such a stripped down breakdown is that, you know, your DJ's got to be ready. You know, they'll be mixing out the previous tune and getting to this point, and this is going to be coming in either as, you know, literally the complete other tune mixed out and it's coming in on its own, or it's going to be sort of blended over something that's already there. So you've always got to think about that. And I know when I'm a DJ, if I have a track that has a big breakdown, it's got to be at the right time in the DJ set for me to be able to do that. And it's got to work in the right context with the track before and after. At the moment, let me listen again. You know what I'm thinking is that it feels like there needs to be something else at that point where we've just hit the end of that 8 bars, maybe almost some kind of like sub boom, like a boom, kind of like a sine wave going down or something. It feels like it needs a little bit extra, a little bit more drama. Maybe a crash there as well. I know that you've got the filtered snare coming up. So you've got a filter that's got a low, well, it's a snare with a low pass filter on it. So you're starting with the frequency low and then adjusting that, opening it up. So as your snare is increasing in terms of the speed of the hits, you've got the sound is getting brighter. I didn't really like the sound of the filtered snare. Okay. Why? I mean, the reason is because we don't have too much bright kind of frequency energy going on in this section. We've got the clap. So what I'd be inclined to do is, instead of the filter bringing the snare up, use volume automation for the snare. So we keep the brightness, we keep that nice crisp energy, and we also get the hype of the snare increasing in terms of speed. I would add something else here, maybe bring in the hats just to hype it up a little bit here, and also a crash cymbal. Okay, so crash cymbal on the last, say, 3 beats or 4 beats, just to add some drama, really signifying that we're about to kick into the next section. I want to listen to that again as well. Just one thing when I'm listening to that, I've been inclined to make the vocal a bit thinner. All right, so put low cut on there. Make it, at the moment it feels a bit thick. You might want to take that to maybe about 300 hertz and then roll off everything below that. And maybe brighten the vocal as well. Let me listen to that again. So there is a crash there, isn't there? But I would say you need some crashes leading up to that. This feels really bare at the moment. I don't know if it's enough to carry it forward at the moment. Let me just listen again. You know what? I might be inclined to encourage you to add some reverb to that clap. All right, something maybe about a second in length, reasonably bright. Maybe a touch of pre-delay to give it a sense of space away from the clap. So maybe about, I don't know, 150 milliseconds. So you've got a little bit of a gap there between the two. So when the clap hits and then when the reverb splashes back. So that would be as a return reverb on your mixer. I think that can give us what's necessary to make that section sound not so bare. Okay, because at the moment you've got a kick, the bass line, and the clap. So I think that space around the clap will help in this section. I like the way the vocals echoing down there. That was good. Okay, good. So the closed hat's coming in. So it feels as if we need something as we head towards the end and you've got that kind of drop before everything kicks back in a bit more lively. It's almost like the clap, you could do some kind of delay and increase the feedback on it. So have a delay that is dubby. And so it's kind of like a dub delay. And so what's happening is the echoes, you go for the higher feedback, and the higher feedback is going to create a sense of creating a fill, a sense of increasing the hype as we lead towards that point, because it all feels a little bit too samey. So it feels like we need just some kind of textural variation to provide some interest there. Let's just take a look at the next section. Okay, now that open hat, I feel that we need to have a bit more energy on the offbeat. It feels like it's kind of it feels quite a rough hat, and there's nothing wrong with having a hat that's got kind of rough textures. But what's happening for me is the fact that I feel like I need a bit more crispness, the crispness that's coming from that clap. So I don't know whether you're going to get that from this particular sample. The frequency content may not exist in there already. Now, maybe you're rolling off the highs, I don't know. It also feels as if it needs some cutting, some low cutting, and maybe you want to put a low cut on that open hi-hat, maybe even as high as about 800 hertz, just to really kind of thin it out and see how it feels with a little bit of extra brightness, just with a high shelf, maybe take it up about, 3 dBs at 10K, see how that feels. But I got a funny feeling that there's no frequency energy in that sound at that area. And another thing I might encourage you to do to give this track a sense of kind of sounding bigger is on that open hi-hat to add a splash of reverb too. That can often work a real treat, and it can add this kind of stereo space. Not too much. Because at the moment, quite a few of your kind of drum elements feel very sparse, very tight, very clean. Not too much in terms of space. I think that's what we're kind of lacking that could really help this. Now this is definitely one of those kind of big room 3 a.m. things again, and I think in that respect it's working. It's a nice repetitive groove. So just as I'm saying it's a repetitive groove, something new comes in that's quite funny. So That section is cool. I like that. I like the repetition. I like the fact that DJ could play around with the EQs and the effects and get something going on. I'm not sure about what I just heard. Okay, that's my gut feeling. Let me have a listen. Okay, now this sounds like what's happened is you've taken your bass line and you've pasted it onto another MIDI track and you've got a synth sound that's copying the bass line. Now that doesn't mean that it's a negative thing to do, okay? I want to listen again. This is another one of those sounds that could benefit from some reverb. I can hear you've got a delay on there, but I think it just needs a sense of space. Okay, I like what you did there. It felt like the sound changed a little bit. It felt like it got a little bit brighter and you had the delay feed increased. I like the extra notes from that other synth now, and that's got a nice sense of space around it. I like that new texture. Yeah, what I'm hearing actually is every now and again you've got this kind of bend in that sound. So that's working nicely actually, I like that. Now as we're increasing kind of like the hype as we get towards the next breakdown, I would suggest something like a ride cymbal, just to add an extra sense of drama. Like a 909 ride could be perfect at this section. Maybe even a tambourine loop or something, just to pick up the energy. I'd also be inclined, as we're heading to the breakdown, to add some kind of sustained tension, almost like a high string on a single note that is gradually increasing in volume here. Let me just check against something. Okay, you hear that? The sustained pad that's got that kind of bright glassy texture to it, I would be inclined to add that back over here. So it's going to create a tension as we head up to this point. Okay, I can hear it coming back here. So that would be perfect. Have that sustained thing coming up before this point. And there's nothing wrong with it carrying on here. Yeah, another one of those sub booms or something around here at the 8-bar section. Maybe the open hat now. I think what we've got is a case where we need to increase the hype. Crash cymbal. Okay, so on that second build up, same again with the filter, keep that bright, no low pass filtering, same with the, sorry, it's a bit late. Let me come back to that, right? So the snare roll, okay? The low pass filter that you've got on there, take it off, do the volume increase again, get those crash cymbals on there. And this is one case where I'd recommend either like a reverse cymbal, a long reverse cymbal at the end that's going to lead right into when everything kicks back, or a of course it's slightly cliched, but a white noise sweep or some kind of riser effect I think would be good to add in that section. I felt a bit disorientated there in terms of working out where the one was in the actual bass line. So when I say the one, that's the first beat in the bar. Sometimes that can be great in a club, particularly if you've had a few beers or whatever you're having, and you've got this kind of disorientated kind of vibe, and that can actually work really well. But I would just say try to lock it down by using those indicators, like the rising sweep or the reverse cymbal or the crashes, just to let people know exactly when that beat's going to come back, right? Okay, some nice new elements here. I'd be inclined to bring back that sustained sound at some point. Get those crash cymbals to indicate every 8 bars. Maybe reverse cymbal here and a crash. I think we just need a little bit more hype, particularly on those kind of high frequencies. Okay, good to hear this riff coming back. I like that. And what I like about that stab and that pitch bend is it feels kind of like that Joey Belter and Mentasm kind of vibe. Slightly Hoover-ish, but not overly so. The moment this is doing what it needs to do in order for a new DJ, well, a new track to be mixed in by the DJ. Also, I'm feeling, looking at this, it looks like we're going to end the track too early. But it's good to see you stripping the elements back. That's what we need to do for a new DJ or a new track to be mixed in. I just want to see what happens here. It looks as if it's going to finish too early. So it looks like about 8 bars here. Okay, yeah, I would keep that vocal echoing off and keeping the hat going, and taking that bass line out, maybe just for another 8 bars at least. Okay, now interestingly, I noticed a detail that I didn't hear before, and that was you've got a kick, another kick over here. So that kick and the previous kick, which is on every beat, and also your bass line, I think potentially that's cluttering things up. I might be inclined to take this kick that we're hearing now and apply a low cut on there. Okay, so I would say maybe about 100 hertz. Right, let me come back to when the bass line first kicks in. Also, whilst I'm over here at the beginning, I just want to check something. I want to listen to one kick. I know I've got some vocal textures there as well. What I want to do is select this and then come to my analyze and take a look at that kick. Okay, here we go. So it's the kick in isolation. So yeah, we've got this real low thud, just under 44 hertz. Very, very thumpy kick drum. We've also got that other kick that we heard at the end, and we've got the bass line as well. Now, so I'm feeling it's slightly kind of over low frequency. It feels like we need to kind of tame that. So I'm going to bring on the master rig and just going to see if we can kind of isolate some of these things and give you some pointers in terms of where you can go. Before I do that, let me just switch over to here, and I'm going to type in some first impressions. So I'm going to say here, this is a great DJ friendly club tune. Musical elements make sense. Feels like you need to work on adding some extra drama to the structure. Aside from that, it's looking like the track needs a bit of work on the mixdown, particularly adding a sense of space and brightness to some of the elements. So, I'm going to go into detail in terms of what I would do. I'm going to try and work on this, using the processor inside Wavelab Pro 9. Give you some hints in terms of where I'd be going with that. In terms of the first impressions here, I'm just going to say here, it feels like the track has strong potential with a few amendments. Please see the video for the full lowdown. Okay, so I'm just filling that out because it's a mandatory point. Whilst I'm here, the strongest point, I'm going to say here, I really like the combination of the bass line and synth stab that bends in pitch. This for me feels like the hook. The vocal complements the backing and adds identity to the tune. When you're making a track, you want something that people are going to remember, and they're going to remember that vocal, and they're going to remember the bass line and the kind of synth hook. Weakest point. Now, I'm going to say here, it's the drums, okay? So the drums feel like they need to be brought out. They feel muddy and lacking in focus and energy. So that's the thing that's dragging it down for me at the moment. The rest of it, I would say, is okay. It's not. I would say that the drums are the weakest point. Okay. So suggested strategy. Now, what we're looking at here is a few adjustments to the breakdown. So I'm going to say here, the breakdowns could do with some extra detail to increase the hype. The mix needs a bit of tweaking. The master process feels a little bit overcooked. The RMS is too high. Aim for about minus 10 dB. Sorry, dB. And just add some extra beats at the end. Feels like it ends too quickly. The sustained pad could be used a bit more too. Okay, so that's it for the moment. All right, so that's your mandatory fields. The rest of the feedback I'm doing on this video. Okay, so back over here. And so as I said, we're going to take a look at this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little section here and just kind of loop. Let's have a listen. By the way, right, so this master rig is a combination of different elements that you can chain together. So these are modules, and you can see here we've got a bunch of things. Just going to stick the limiter at the end. I'm going to put it onto brick wall, and the output level I'm just going to put as minus 1 dB for the moment. That's going to go to the right. Let me add some more things first. I'm going to add a compressor over here. This is my kind of DIY master chain. I've been using this sort of thing for a long time across all the different platforms. I would add an EQ. I'm going to place that after the compressor. And just because I know myself, I like saturation, I'm going to place something in here because this could be a little fixing job for some of the things that I'm hearing. So there is the ability to make it sound like it's going through tape, and to do so at different frequency bands here as well. So multi-band compressor, equalizer, and compressor to gel the mix together. Maybe do some corrective stuff in different frequency bands. EQ just to add as a tone control. Saturator to bring out some energy in life where potentially it doesn't exist, and then the limiter at the end just to make sure we don't go above 0 dB, but as I've said, just maybe a little bit lower. Tell you what, my gut instinct is actually I want another EQ, and I'm going to place this before the compressor. All right, the reason is because I feel you've got a little bit of an abundance of energy that we don't need. Actually, I tell you what, I'm going to go for the steeper slope, so 48 dBs per octave. I'm going to place this at 30 hertz, all right? Because, you know, I said I heard that big kind of thump. Yes, it was at 40, but I don't want to be cutting everything out of that. It just feels like maybe a little bit less. I don't know. Let me just see how this feels, all right? Okay, if you're paying attention to the EQ spectrum analyzer here, you can see there that on that low band, we are actually just shaving a little bit of energy off there. We're not missing too much. So look at the peak value that's left. Okay, so without the EQ change, where my cursor is, and then with it on, see down here at 20 hertz, it's a bit lower. Okay, so I think that's doing a nice little job of shaving off some of that low sub. We may need to tame that in other ways. So that's just a little safety net before everything else. And it makes sense to do so to give ourselves some more headroom. So onto this section here. So we've got some compression already happening here with the default settings. What we tend to do when we're doing compression of a track overall is we go for a shallow ratio. You can see here 1.5 to 1. And what we'd be looking at is quite often giving this a sense of kind of a slower attack. You know, it's going quite fast there. I'm going to take this to about 20. And the reason for that is because we want to just make sure that those transients are not being squashed too much, okay? So I'm going to bring this out. I'm going to do the same across all of these. Just have a listen. I am working on headphones at the moment. I will check on speakers, okay? Let's get a feel for this. And you can see minus 2.42 dBs. That's the reduction level so far. I'm going to compensate by bringing this up. It doesn't have to be mathematically correct. We should be doing this by ear. But for the purpose of the video, I'm just going to bring it up pretty much the same. And I'm going to bring the thresholds down on here. So what I'm doing is I'm compressing overall. You could put a single band compressor on here, you know. I'm still getting to know Wavelab Pro 9, and I wonder if you can actually, I'll tell you what I'll do it on here. Let's add a new compressor. And I'm kind of talking to myself here. Let me explain. So I'm going to take off these bands and see if this will let me pick this up over the whole range. No, it won't. Yeah, because what I wanted to say there was that a lot of people, when they're doing the master compression, will compress over the whole mix, unless they're doing corrective stuff. So when I say compress over the whole mix, they're not doing the frequency band stuff. So it's saying, okay, everything from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. I can't do that on there, so I'm going to take it off. So I'm going to focus on working with these bands and trying to get these sitting nicely. I just want to do a little kind of before and after here. So before. Now, what's happening is it feels like it's really livening up, but I'm noticing that actually my limiter is working here and it's bringing down the level. So on this module, what I can do is I can bring the volume down. All right, so the compressor here is potentially bringing it up. Let me just check here with the default values here. There's no drive. Let me take that off for the moment. This EQ, let me take that off too. So the compressor. So you see what I'm doing there is just reducing it because I don't want it to be over limiting, because you've already hit this quite up high. Your track is pretty flatlined. So that is the sign of it being quite heavily limited. Now what I'm hearing when I'm turning that master rig on is that low thump is being reduced. The relative levels of the other sounds feels like they're coming up. So I'm getting more energy out of the track, it feels. Let me take it to another section. Just going to check it around here. Okay, so we're losing a little bit of energy on the high end there from that clap. Let me just check over here. I think I need to bring this one up too. It was lacking in energy. This solo. Yeah, look, it's this one here. So that feels like it needs to come up a bit more. I really do feel that something is missing from that clap now. Let me just have a look. I don't think it's this band actually. Let's just do this over here. Yeah, you hear that? So the compressor's just, it's taking away energy. So I'm going to roll this back. So just blend in a little bit of that mix. Okay, I'm going to leave it there for the moment. So we're doing a bit of gentle compression on there. And I'm going to bring on the EQ now. Let's have a look. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to boost the gain and move this left and right and try and see if I can pick out certain frequencies that I feel need to be worked on. And generally that's going to be that I'm going to need to either cut it or maybe have a little bit of a boost on there. Just trying a little bit of a cut here, all right? So I just want to reference that against before. Okay, now that feels that it's giving the rest of the track a bit more space. Just going to back it off a little bit. Yeah, so that feels like it's cleaning it up. I like what's going on with that. Let me just come up here on the highs and I want to bring something out. So look, those two changes really do feel like they've added a sense of livening up the track. And so the reason why I'm doing this is that, you know, in attempting to do a kind of remaster of it, it's highlighting the areas where you might want to work. So this kind of implies that you want to get some cutting going on at the actual mix level. So on the individual elements, that's what I would suggest. So getting rid of some of this frequency energy on your kick would be a good idea, more so than having to apply that over the whole track. I want to see how this all sounds when the bass line comes in. All right, so here we go. You can hear there that we've got the kick, the subbier elements of the kick and also the bass. So in some respects it feels like we've lost a little bit of the guts of the track. Maybe that's too much of a reduction. What I am going to do is I'm going to listen on my speakers now. All right, so I'm going to just get this looping and have a listen on speakers. Okay, so I don't know if I need to put that one on there, that band. I think what I might do instead is actually run with this saturator. Okay, so if we take a listen to those frequencies, where are we? So it's this purple band. I'm just going to highlight this. Going to add some drive to this. So it's on solo at the moment. Let's have a look. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to add in that area a little bit more interest. So I've rolled the drive up here on those two bands. Let's have a listen again. Okay, that's too much. Let's bring this down. And that EQ, let's maybe just dip down a bit here. Okay, this is good, but I'm feeling that I'm missing something on the bottom end. So with my first band here, I'm going to take it to a low shelf. I'm going to set this to about 80, and I'm just going to lift it up, all right? So you see, I was making some adjustments there. I felt that we were losing a bit of the guts of the kind of bottom end. So that's the reason why I've raised this up a bit. I want to listen again. Okay, that feels like that's really livening up the high end to me. All right, so this is backing up those things that I was saying before earlier about the mix, about crisping it up a bit. So I'm kind of artificially adding that at the moment. Let me just see how this is. Just checking the limiting here, making sure it's not too much. Okay, let me listen to that on the speakers. Yeah, okay, that's sounding a lot better. So, you've seen what I've done there. So I've gone through a whole bunch of things just to try to kind of get it feeling a bit more kind of finished and professional. So what I want you to do is to go into the mix and see if you can get those elements in the track and use what I've done here as a kind of guide. All right, it's much better to get these things fixed in the mix. So in terms of everything else, I think what I've done is I've given you a lot of feedback on terms of where I think the improvements are. You've got some mixed stuff here. And, I would suggest, that it was a little bit kind of overcooked on the master. I'll tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this. Just apply what I've done here, the processing, into the waveform. So you can see this, all right. So it's cooking it up now. So it's running the wave through the processing that I've added. And I can make this available if you want it, if you want this updated file. And, it could be useful for you just to try. It's, I've got to confess, I'm not a qualified mastering engineer. I've gone through some processes here that I would go through when doing my own stuff. It's always nice to get a dedicated mastering engineer with mastering speakers to be able to do this kind of job. I'm not offering the service of doing the mastering, but I think in terms of the processes that I've just run through, they're going to be really useful guides for you in terms of fixing the mix. So take a look over here on the left-hand side. You can see now that the waveform is not as slammed up as it was before. It feels like it's got a bit more movement to it now, a bit more conservative. I think it's a healthier looking waveform. And it's just out of curiosity, take a look at the frequency analysis, roll this around. You can see it's a bit lower down at the 20 hertz, which is what we'd expect. A little bit more fizzier, a bit more crisper. So, it's been quite useful to compare that with the other one. So that's about it. Okay, so hopefully that's been of good use to you, Tom. And I wish you all the best with the rest of that. And, what I'll do is I'll upload the video so you can take a look.